Holly, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
I am so good, and I'm so excited to do this interview because of what we were just talking about before I hit record, which is that we're not prepared for this.
Okay, great. Yeah, I love doing things like this.
So, my first question for you, and I will tell the people that are watching before we get started, Holly and I could talk for hours. So, we're going to try our best to keep this short and sweet.
Go roar.
We're going to try. Holly, why flowers? What connects your flowers with your passion?
The flowers were actually an accident. I grew up with a family who owned a garden center, and as most kids, I was thrown into the midst of a family business and wanted nothing to do with it. But I think, all beautiful things take root, and that kind of got inside of me. What really happened was I was looking for a way to stay home with my children. I wanted to build a business that would allow me to work from home and take care of the kids. So we got a lovely little property in Luckett's, and some sweet older lady had filled it up with years worth of gifts, probably, when you bring somebody a hydrangea or tulips or peonies, and the place was just in bloom. And I just started arranging because I wanted to bring beautiful things into my home. Because we didn't have anything. And I felt like that was a way to make it special and make the home feel like a home. I guess it was also intuitive because of the time that I had spent in the garden, center with my father. And I started designing, and people just started asking me to do events. So it just gradually happened. It really was an accident. When I look back, I would have never, as a child working at that garden center, ever dreamed I would spend a life in flowers. Never. And now I love it.
How old were your children? Because you have kind of two sets of kids.
Right.
So how old was this? Your first group of kids?
Yeah. Okay. So we have children there's 7 children, and there are the original 4 and the bottom 3.
That's right.
That's what they call themselves. We did not name them that. So the oldest is 30. And then Abigail is 25. I started the business when she was 25. Then we have Hannah, who's 24, Riley, who's 20, Elijah is 12. He goes into the bottom 3. Samuel is 11, and Grace just turned 9. So that's the clan.
Goodness. So you started it when your second was born.
Right, because the first child, I was actually a travel agent, and I was doing that madness of, going to work every day, bringing my child home. The dishes are still in the sink because I haven't, I wanted to spend time with him the night before. So we leave the dishes in the sink, go off to work, come home, and you're, just in this cycle of chaos, and you're not spending any time with your family. And it was just crazy. He was, at the babysitter all the time. And it was actually my boss at the travel agency who said, you are so good at these flowers. Like, I don't know why you don't just do that. And when I was pregnant with Abigail, it was just good fortune. A lady up the street came to visit me. She was getting married, and she wanted to see the new baby. She wanted to see Abby. And she said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm going to do weddings." And she said, "Well, you can do mine." That's how I got my first contract. And it was a church on our street, Little Bethel Church right up the street. And I would walk up to the church, do a little bit of decorating, come back to the house, nurse the baby, go back up and decorate some more, because it was a small community church and we were allowed to go in and out as much as we wanted. It was a blessing. So that's how it all got started.
That's so perfect. And so it's kind of interesting, from a Little Bethel church, then what are some of the most memorable, or the most, I can't believe I had that opportunity, designs that you were asked to do in the last 25 years?
Well, that's hard. There's so much. I think the most memorable or significant change in the business that brought on all of these really big opportunities was social media. So, here I was on, Stumptown Road, very rural community, and a very closed, things were very closed off for everyone, I think, in the world. And I started blogging, and because of that, I got a voice, and people started asking me for help. And I was ready, willing, and able to let people into my world and answer questions. And that propelled me forward in the industry. It made me a teacher. And then, because the social media was rising, we got a lot of really incredible opportunities. I got to do the Not Dream Wedding in North Carolina, which was really amazing. Just doing events across the country with other leading designers was really fun. Um, I've been able to teach in Russia, which was a really big deal, and China and Australia. So there's so many significant moments now along the way. It's kind of hard to pick.
Yeah, just one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the other really significant moment would probably, and it's not an event, but it was, the purchase of our farm, which was just a very big undertaking and a miracle, because it was something that we must have been destined for. It wasn't really something that, if you were to look at the books, you would think was going to happen to this little company.
So one of the things that we have talked about and that you've shared recently is around loneliness and the path of building something, following your dreams, following what landed in your lap. And you mentioned that you would spend hours and hours, obviously, in your flower shop or your design shop. And then you didn't realize something about loneliness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Just talking about loneliness and the
Oh.
what you experienced, but what yet you didn't actually know about loneliness as you were
Well,
coming.
I think, again, prior to the social media, I was in my flower shop producing these events all by myself. If I had a question, I had no one to ask. I was working. I mean, sometimes we would work through the night, we being me. And it was incredibly lonely, because I did not have industry peers that I could work with. I could not call them to ask them to come help me. I could not ask them for their advice. And it wasn't until after I built this community, which we call Chapel Designers, not Holly Chapel, but Chapel as in a church, because we're all wedding and event designers. It wasn't until after that organization was built and we were all of a sudden assisting and helping each other with everything under the sun, that I realized how incredibly lonely I had been, and how much we need a network and a community of people to lift us up, and empower us to do things that we never dreamed of doing. It takes all of the fear away. And I think, fear is the one thing that keeps everybody standing still and not moving forward in their lives, in every aspect of your life. I think it's fear that always holds us back. So, when you have an army of people with you, you feel like you can do anything. So.
Well, and what I absolutely love about Chapel Designers and watching your path and your journey is that you're 100% committed to building others up so that they can then go have their own ripple effect in their community, in their local place. And then I love also that you are such a proponent of teachers. You said that it made you a teacher, but I think you've probably always been one. What do you love to do the most as your business has grown to where it is now? What's your favorite thing?
This is really hard. If we could tie me down to my favorite thing, then things would be a lot easier for everyone around me. I would say I love teaching as much as I love doing the wedding flowers. I couldn't pick one over the other, but the reason I'm a good teacher is because I'm actively in the midst of my craft. There are a lot of people that just become teachers and they leave, their work, and so they're no longer current. Or there are people that are teaching who really don't have the experience. And so the two really for me are hand in hand. And, I love both of these things so much. I did some like strength finder test, or I'm not quite sure, one of those wonderful things. And, the really cool thing is that I thought I really loved flowers. But what we found out is that I really, really love people, and that the flowers are the conduit to get me to the people. So I would say both things are right there. Both are my passion. So it's an even win.
I think you're also extremely gifted at bringing people together, and then letting whatever ruminates and marinates from those people being together to just happen. I've witnessed that, and I think that I wanted to just acknowledge you in that, because it's a gift.
It's so funny that you can notice all this stuff, that you can see this happening from the outside looking in. That's the other thing that I am as a connector. I love putting this person with this person with this person, because I know that when we're all together, we're stronger. And it's so natural for me to do that. And I don't understand why people hold resources and relationships back as if, they just get bigger and better, right?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question that probably is going to be a little difficult to answer, but I would just like to know your take on it. You have 7 children. You are married. Your husband and you both are hands in your business, and you have businesses, plural. You run a farm. How do you do it all? Is that a misnomer? Can women have it all, do it all, be it all? Or is there some kind of weird balance that we all have to just accept?
I don't know the answer to this question. I know that I could do a much better job if I was doing less. But that's just not who I am. I'm a more kind of person, hence, the big family, and let's have a second business and a third business. I can't stop myself from doing more. And that's a thing inside of me. And I love it because this is who I want to be, and this is what I want to do. But there are definitely consequences for sure. This always is so painful and hard to say, but like my original 4 children will tell you that I was a much better mother with those first 4 children. Now, it's hard to know if it's because it certainly has a lot to do with the business, because I'm very driven now, because I have so much opportunity. I didn't know all this opportunity was going to come my way when I had 5, 6, and 7, But the other thing is, is it just because I'm so focused on my business, or is it also because I'm older? I've been doing this for so long that, hate to say it, but you get a little blasé at the end of the line, it's hard to know what is really going on here. I would say I'm definitely not your poster child for balance, and I probably have my priorities out of whack. Some of that is also because my husband does work with me, and we switched roles. He picked up the slack. So like if no one was tending to the children, obviously my mother, my mother vibe would get in there and would kick up a little bit, but I know he's got them. So, and maybe it's a crutch that I've allowed him to, run the roost with the kids, but I know that a family member is here, tending and watching. And although I am almost always working, I have the blessing of being in the house with them when everything is spinning out of control. I can shut work down, go off to the elementary school, and, make the Valentine's party. So that is, that's kind of how it is around here. But I am definitely lacking with the bottom round of children as far as being that attentive, focused Pollyanna mom.
But I think sometimes, and I see this in some of the big families that we have in our life as well, that sometimes the older children also help balance that out. And I've seen that with your kids. And honestly, I think the bottom 3 or the youngest child, they sometimes have just a different outlook on what they expect or need out of their parents as well.
Right. That's true. And the older children are so much older that they're almost out of the house. Mm-hmm. So, when they were all younger, we had a period of time where everybody was home, which was really great. But the bottom 3 are now really essentially in this house alone with 2 older parents. I was 43 when I had Grace. So, it's an interesting dynamic. It's a crazy house because you can actually see the evolution of a man. You used to be able, now that the children are getting older, it's harder, but you used to be able to see a baby man and a medium-sized man and an adult man, and then you'd see my old man husband. And it's just so funny. You can just see them progressed through the years in this house because there's so many different age groups. But, you know, I try to be mindful to set business things aside and be more present. But, you know, sometimes, I mean, I'm not a horrible parent, so I don't want to say too many bad things, but there is something going on in my life and my career that is undeniable. It is a destiny. It's a path that I'm supposed to be on. And sometimes you just have to have faith that you're doing the right thing. And, you know, the mom guilt is such, it's so present and constant. That's also like a voice you don't even know if it's real, how much to listen to it, you know? So.
Yeah. So you mentioned your husband. Give us the real dirty, gritty, nitty gritty about what it's like to work so closely with him. You guys are intertwined together daily, working through business problems, working through business celebrations, all of the stuff. Is it easy? Is it something you're still working on? How is that?
You know what? It's not easy. It's probably really hard for the people that work for us to, you know, see the two of us banter. I wouldn't change it because he's a significant part of the story. You know, he's really the reason I'm successful because he's always behind me making things happen. You know, I'm the one that comes up with crazy ideas, and then he has to, you know, build the armature or the backbone or the spine of whatever I'm coming up with. It's the same with like the books and everything else. You know, he says I'm kind of oblivious, like I run around in la la land, just believing everything's going to be okay, and I'm going to go jump and do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. Oh, he calls me the woman on the prow of the ship. You know, the girl that's like this.
Yeah.
And he said, you're just out there cutting through the waves and you're leaving this wake behind you and everyone else has to clean it up. So, I mean, that's a terrible, I mean, I should be embarrassed by that analogy, but I mean, I think it's pretty realistic.
No, but he and the people you've put in place are the ones that are very well equipped to clean up and gather and make sense of the wake. So
I guess it's true. I mean, they are, you know, Evan he's kind of difficult because he's incredibly wonderful or incredibly difficult. So there's the middle ground. It's like really hard to navigate. And sometimes I don't want to ask him for the help I need because I know it's going to set him off, right? And I know it's going to get him frustrated and overwhelmed. But you know what? At the end of the day, like his position is not very much fun. You know, he's the one that has to make sure that the money is in the bank. He's the one that has to come clean up after me every time I break something or can't, you know, connect a computer or whatever. I mean,
but that balance that you found is pretty neat.
It is. I mean, it is working, and it is absolutely why we're a success, but it's not easy. But then I don't think working for someone else is easy. You know, like when we have the days where it's really a struggle, I'm like, okay, great. Do you want to go to work for someone else and, you know, have them tell you what to do and you don't get to be here for the kids? And, you know, I am very positive where he's a little bit more, you know, questioning. I think it's a pretty sweet deal that we get to work from home. And as much as I'm working, I'm happy to do it for the privilege of being here and having the right to say, we're going down to the school to be with the kids, or, you know, I don't want to work today. You know, I can take a day off if I want to. So it's interesting. It is definitely not for everyone. Was a very big change for me to have him be aware of the finances, because before I had a family account and, you know, the money that I was generating was just extra money for if the kids needed bread or shoes or whatever. And when we conjoined and all of a sudden he was like looking at my he never looked at my credit cards. He never looked at what was in my account. Why did you spend this? Why did you do this? I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is how it's going to be. But you know what, I'm pretty strong-willed too. So, you know, I listen to what he says and I try and, you know, pay attention to what he's saying about finances or decisions that we make. But then at the end of the day, I kind of also sometimes do what I want, which is,
Well, and you and I had talked a little bit about money and about the success that goes along with money and what should be driving our need or our desire for more. What have you decided in this last, I think it's a recent shift for you, but how do you look at your relationship with money and the potential earnings and success for your business?
well, um, I've always been service oriented. I just, believe that we should all be helping each other. When the farm came up, as I said, we did not have the financial means for it. And a benefactor, a very amazing person, came into my life and said that she had seen what I had done in the floral design industry and how I was lifting other people up. And so she offered me a loan. And this was a very significant part that was necessary in order to qualify. And, you know, of course, at first I told her no and, you know, went through all of that. And what everyone counseled me was that this is a loan, just like I would have with the bank, that I do have with the bank. And that, you know, I obviously will pay her back and I didn't have to have shame in having this help. But I remember, you know, standing on the porch with her and promising her, you know, not only would I do good with, you know, the people in floristry, but that there would be a level of service work that goes out of that farm. I made a swear and a promise to her. And so I've done a few things like flower therapy where, you know, we teach and then a little bit goes back to the community. Maybe we deliver flowers to an old folks home or things like that. But last fall in November, I got to fulfill something that was really, really cool. When I named the farm Hope, which is actually after the couple that had lived on that farm for 60 years. They were the tenant farmers, and they had never been able to own the farm. And their last name was Hope, and that was, to me, that was everything. That word is so awesome and beautiful. And so, and it would also tie back to them. So I named the farm Hope. So I get the Instagram handle, and I'm, you know, I guess other Hope people are connecting with me. And there's this organization called Along Comes Hope. And she starts talking to me and I'm like, well, what do you do? And she said, well, you know, I help children who have cancer. And I said, that is amazing. And she explained that they give them these outings and special days. And I said, well, you know, I promised that I would have service at my farm. Do you think that maybe someday you would want to bring the children to the farm? And she said, yeah, that's great. And, you know, we lost touch with each other for like a year and a half, I guess, because she was just waiting to get over, because I think she's based in California. She was just waiting to work here in the DC market. And she called me up and she said, you know, we're ready to take you up on that offer. So we had, like 14 kids at the farm. Now, all of them weren't cancer patients. They might be the siblings. And we also had parents who had lost their children, which was really difficult. And we got to teach them floral design. And I mean, in my mind, it was just like a fun free day for them. But what they were explaining to me was it's a cancer-free day. Like when your mind is working on a craft or, you know, taken away to a different place, you're not thinking about those things that are bothering you. And it was the beginning of a calling inside of me that it doesn't have to just be helping people in the industry of floristry. Like I'm going to continue to help young business owners make their businesses better, but there is a way that these flowers can impact other people. So we're having a fashion show this April, and our models will all be cancer survivors, and then everyone will be professionally photographed, and then they're going to create a calendar, and then that calendar will be used to it will be sold, and then the benefits from that will help the two organizations that are for it's Along Comes Hope, and then there's Team Mateus, which is a young man in this area who passed away from cancer 3 years ago, and his mom is Roya. And that the funds will go to that. And then we're also having, we'll sell tickets to the fashion show part of this, and different caterers and people are helping me bring it to life. And then we'll sell tickets to that, and that will also go to those two organizations. So I'm just starting to realize the bigger picture is, you know, well, and again, with that Strength Finder stuff, you know, like, we know that what I really care about is people. So some people want money just to have money, and I want money so that I can use it to help people. Like, I would like to not always be in fear of losing the farm. And I mean, we've been fine. We're doing great with it. But I mean, it is a big undertaking to have two mortgages in this community. It's a very expensive place to live. And what we're doing is just kind of, we're getting by, but I need it to get self-sustaining so that I can do more. That my end goal is to be free of worrying about money so much that I can just spend it on other people. It's crazy wish, but it's what I want. So
no, I think that's really cool. And I think that it goes back to that, you can see people and you can see potential. And I really love the concept of money, not for a bank account, not for grandiose trips, not for another house, another car, but you want money to be able to provide the safety net for your home so that you can know that the farm's taken care of. But that's so cool to be able to just earn more to give more.
it does, when people get to the farm and they get to let go and just, sometimes they're just there to see the flowers, and that brings so much joy and so much peace. But to have somebody spend time with you when you're growing your business it's a really big blessing. And there's something special about that place too, just because it was a 450-acre farm and it's historic. It's beautiful. The old house was from the 1820s, but everything around it was taken. You know, it was subdivided into one of these big, huge communities. And, you know, it's just like this little piece of history that's left. And it just feels so sentimental and special to see it there, and that it's going to thrive and make it in the midst of the fact that everything else was taken from it. All of its land was taken other than these 25 acres. So, I mean, I didn't expect to care so much about becoming the caretaker of that historic piece of property. But it's just really interesting too to see the way that a farm used to function. You know, that it is a dairy barn. The fashion show is going to happen in the dairy barn, and it's a feeding trough that is really the runway. I mean, it is where the animals fed. I mean, it's so flipping cool to give it new uses and new life. So,
but at the same time, protect the heritage and the history. That's
yes,
cool.
yes.
So one of the last questions I want to ask you, and I didn't prep you for this one either. Another thing that I have watched you do marvelously well, and without ego or the attention attached to it, is connect and then promote other local businesses. Can you talk about why collaboration and promotion of others' work is so important to you and to all of us? Why should we be doing more of it?
You know, maybe it's because I was hurt. You know, I hate people that have a social media following and they're so perfectly concerned about making their following bigger and better that they forget to shine a little light on somebody else. I mean, to me, I get so upset. I don't understand, you know, what is the point of having anything if it's not to help someone else? And, you know, if we work together to lift each other up, you know, it's just everybody's shining. I mean, to me, it's just a no-brainer. My mind doesn't work in any other way. You know, I know a lot of people, if a designer comes here, I put them up on Instagram, or, you know, there are a couple little companies that I, you know, love their candles or love their ribbon. And, you know, I just think it's important to do that. I'm also really careful to do it and not be paid to do it, because then it doesn't feel authentic. So, again, it's just that connector thing. Like, I love, like, oh, you know, I'm going to have a party at the farm. Well, I know this wine guy, and I know this cheese guy, and I know this, dietitian. And I just start putting everybody together. Maybe it's just the concept of, again, like a really big family. I mean, that is, it doesn't, my mind doesn't stop at, let's just keep it simple and let's just take care of yourself. My mind is like, how can I help all of these different people and do all of these different things?
Right. And I happen to love your wine guy.
Oh, I know, he's amazing. But he's got the same attitude. I mean, I remember when we both were in this market together, there was no one else. And he has that same attitude. Like, when I got the farm, he wanted to come help and be present. And, there's a potter here who I adore. And, he's a teacher and he has 4 kids. And his wife is also, she's, a teacher. And I just, I want to see them succeed. It's also because I think like types of people bond together. So I definitely know that the kind of people that I'm playing with are also going to go off and help someone else. So, I mean, I think that's really important. I don't invest very much time in people that I am not attracted to, because I know what's at the root and the core of them. And it absolutely repels me. Like, I can't be around them.
What would you say to someone who's watching, who is feeling either disillusioned or frustrated with their current situation? They have a little glimmer of a dream, a hope, a desire, but they can't quite push themselves over the edge or step out or step into that space where they have support and a tribe of people. What would you say to encourage them?
I'm so glad you asked me this, because I think in a situation where you're either going to sit there and do nothing, and that's exactly what you're going to have, is nothing, or you're going to just take that leap of faith. And, this is where Evan and I are very different. My husband will not move forward because he can clearly see all of the reasons why it won't work, right? I do not let fear stop me. It's a rule that I have. Like, if the only reason I'm not willing to go somewhere, do something, try something is because of fear, then the answer is yes, I have to do it. That's how I got to teach in China. That's how I got the farm. There's no shame in trying. And there's a very good chance you'll succeed if you do, but you sit there and you do nothing and you live in your fear, you're getting, absolutely nowhere. And I don't know, I feel sorry for people who get stuck in that place. One of the things that helps me, which is kind of crazy, and this used to help me when I was in the car with the kids, and I, had 4 or 5 kids in the car, and we were late to ballet, and I had a flower order in the car. And sometimes my mind, I was just like, I'm going to get in so much trouble. I'm going to be late. Everything's going to be ruined. And then one day I was just like, is anybody going to die over it? And then that's because people do die over really, lots of tragic things are happening around us. But that puts it in. Try and buy the farm and I don't get it. Is anybody going to die over it? No. I mean, if I'm late to this job, no. I mean, if the answer is, if I don't get home because the children are on the roof and they might die over it, then I better hustle. That's the way that I, alleviate that fear. And that's the way that I help get everything to right size. I have a friend who says, when the fear to succeed, it's something like the fear to succeed is greater than the fear of success. It's something she makes herself move forward. And I love that, because there comes a point where, the fear of just sitting there gets outweighed by the possibility of the chance that you could be successful. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes total sense. Okay. Makes total sense. And I think there's also a responsibility that we have, if we're in that space, to find one person who you can either talk to, share, so that they can have your back in that place of stepping over or around your fear. And I don't think fear is a bad thing, but you can't let it stop you.
Right. And I think that's the other thing that I have in me that is it is very helpful. I have no fear or shame in telling people what's going on. And I think a lot of people hold all that inside, and that is just a horrendous burden to carry all of your thoughts, dreams, and wishes all by yourself. I learned a long time ago that if you tell someone, it cuts it in half. I talk through all of the ideas, all the wishes and wants, and all the possibilities with multiple people all of the time. And that is why I'm stronger too. I don't just believe in this tribe mentality for the people that I'm trying to help. I use that tribe for myself. And I really do know 100% that if something, really big or tragic was happening around here, that I would have a tribe of people that would help me overcome it. And that's just a perk of being a good person. So
there's also another piece of that I think when you were talking about sharing something with someone else, it halves it. But I think that there's also, when we keep ourselves from other people, we're doing them a disservice, because others have something to give us. And if we don't let them in and don't let them know what's going on, what we're about to do, they don't have the opportunity to be of service to us either. So
it's true. You're not allowing other people to have that gift.
Yeah. Okay. Last question.
Okay.
How do you reset? What's your way to not zen yourself, but at the end of a day, at the end of a week, at the end of a series of classes, travel, life, what do you use to kind of get yourself back into it when you're feeling exhausted or stressed or overwhelmed?
You know what, this is crazy, and it's such a blessing. It's flowers. It is. So or just gathering with people. But it's so interesting to me that I can be on a job of making what someone wants and spending hours. Maybe I'm out in 100-degree weather, doing installations in the heat, and I'm hot and I'm miserable and I want to die. I can walk through the door of the flower shop, go straight out the back door, hit the gardens and cut flowers and design for me. And I'm so grateful that I can differentiate the working and that this is for pure joy. And I guess to me, it's very simple, because when I'm creating for a client, I'm doing what they tell me to do. And when I'm creating for myself, well, anything can happen. It's a very artistic and exciting and empowering time. That really, there is nothing more peaceful for me than to go out and cut and to make something. I'm so grateful that I really love it that much.
Okay, so I lied. I have another question.
Okay.
What's your favorite flower?
Ooh, I can't do that either.
I'm trying to pick which favorite child.
Yeah, that's exactly the same. I wouldn't, you can't. I will say lilac is important to me because this property is loaded with lilac, and I started selling lilac at the little Leesbrook Flower and Garden Show, which, I started taking those bundles there, and that's really what made people start asking me to do weddings and events. We have started growing dahlias, and I'm obsessed with them. They're just spectacular. But I love all the weird things too, like just a foliage that maybe is stressed and it's browning, and I love muddy tones. It's sometimes just about the tone or the arch of the stem.
Well, and your magnolia leaf creation, I loved seeing those at the farm too.
Yeah, that's right. The garlands and the wreaths.
Yes. Holly, thank you so much for this. I am so excited to be able to share all of your goodness and the things that you've learned, that you've shared with us, with everybody that's watching.
Thank you so much. I'm excited about the future and the changes that I can hopefully make and the difference that I can make. That's my goal.
That's cool.
Thank you. Bye.